What's going on, everybody? Special guest here is Wes Lamy with WorldWideWest.com. He's got a great perspective on Miami, Florida State. We're going to get into this. Wes, what's going on?
What's going on, Chris? Good to see you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad we're doing this. We're chatting here a little bit, but we're going to talk about this game. Wes, I want to get right into it. Just real quick. Miami 4-4, 2-2 in the ACC. Florida State 5-3, 3-3 in the ACC. You know, Wes, and you're there at Miami games. I want to start with them just real quick because a couple of weeks ago against Duke, that terrible loss there, Coach said they felt like they regressed. I know you said that on your post-game comments. You thought that was a big word. I just 8 games into this thing with Miami, only 4 games left, kind of just where this team is and what they've done. How do you kind of assess this thing as it's gone?
Well, Chris, first of all, this is the UMFSU. This is UMFSU week, and I wish I was a little bit more excited because this was games where these guys, throughout campus, they wake up for it year after year. And unfortunately, like when you have the Middle Tennessee loss, you had the way, obviously, like you mentioned, the Duke game, and then last week versus Virginia on the road, 4 overtimes, and then you look into how, like in my opinion, toward that fourth quarter, the way that they managed the time toward that one, there's so much to be said in terms of excitement going into this game, but at the same time, where I see the trajectory of the season so far. So I expected just a little bit more to the trajectory for the season, but it's really a lot of urgent things to be concerned about going into this game, and because of certain games that UM has played so far. And with all due respect, FSU's just looked a little bit better going to this game than Miami.
Yeah, and they're just I think they do, and we'll get into some Florida State stuff. But yeah, the Miami thing, I know it's been disappointing because regardless of what we thought going into it, a lot of people thought they'd have a good year, and then you have that Middle Tennessee, and it's hard to bounce back from that. But they've stacked more losses on top of it. I mean, they've played 8 games, and 2 of them they didn't score a touchdown, and 8 turnovers in another. Like you said, and I think everybody's going to tune in and watch. That's their favorite team. They want to see if this thing, maybe the final month, some positivity. I think people are tired of waiting, and we'll see if they can get one against their rival. Florida State, good season, not anything great. I'm sure they'd like to be a little better than 5-3, but they got an opportunity to take on Miami here. Wes, let's get in. There's things Florida State does well. I want to start. I know we're going to talk about quarterback. I want to talk about their run game. They lead the ACC,
absolutely.
19th nationally, 210 yards a game. They're coming off 3 straight games where they've piled up 200 yards. They've got 3 backs, one in Trey Benson. Mario Cristobal coached at Oregon, so he's very familiar there. What do you see with the run game? Talk about that a little bit. What you see with FSU's run game?
Yep, you hit it right on the money. Trey Benson, he's part of the 1-2 punch to help the passing game. Trey Benson, he's coming out that huge game last week over Georgia Tech. So one thing to say about them is that they're balanced tremendously, especially being led by Trey Benson. And it's something where people always look at the passing game first, but I really feel like they're balanced in terms of like 50% passing, 50% running, and the edge I would possibly give to the running game. But it's all about Trey Benson, especially where he came off that 111 yards rushing game against Georgia Tech last week.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be, I really think it's going to be a big key in this one because Miami's linebackers, we've talked about them all season long, going into the offseason, the whole thing. And I know Corey Flagg has put up some good individual stats. His tackles for loss are there, but I think there's still question marks. He hasn't had good performances lately. We'll see a lot of attention on him. If they're going to go with Caleb Johnson once again, they've got some injuries at linebacker. I think it's going to be a big one in the linebackers. What do you see as keys for Miami to slowing down the run? The run game of Florida State, what do you think are keys?
Here's my guy, defensive lineman Leonard Taylor. He's the one that's really going to have to dictate that line, and at the same time, literally dictate what's going on in terms of the running and the pass game. So Leonard Taylor is who I really feel is going to really have to be the key defensive player. Obviously, secondary, I'm worried about completely. Hurricanes fans, they have a lot to be worried about the secondary. We've seen it up to this point. But the defensive line with Leonard Taylor, I expect him to have a big game to really be a factor in this game and poise his will in this game.
Let's stay with Miami's defensive line, Taylor. And I think, a lot of people are hoping to see more consistency, these kind of performance. It's tough to have what he did last week, ACC Defensive Lineman of the Week. Look, 4 tackles for loss. That's hard to do each and every week, but you just want to see the consistency of impact plays. Miami's defensive line, that'll be big. Daryl Jackson's been in there, a bigger guy. Akeem Mesidor, we'll see if he comes back. I'd be surprised if he didn't play. And Mitchell Agude, I like that. They've got Harvey as well. What can Miami's defensive line do to slow down the run game in a sense? How can they kind of essentially help their linebackers? What's kind of important for them to facing these backs, and obviously Jordan as well, Jordan Travis there at quarterback?
Well, this is what stood out to me completely, Chris. The way that these running backs all season long have been able to get around the edge. So there's times I'm like, wow, it's literally like no pressure on the edge on either side when these running backs are able to get around the edge. So if I feel like they can just help the linebackers put that pressure around the edge, then that should be a key factor, especially where Benson, he can go up the gut around the edge. But if those guys can just put some pressure around the edge, that should be it. Let's hold containment. I mean, it sounds funny. I'm not trying to sound funny, but people say, get around the edge. Like, guys, we've seen it. And like, these guys are literally like, the jerseys are clean, getting around the edge, no pressure at all. So if they can put some pressure around the edge and help the linebackers a bit, that don't let them get past that second level, and then they can help out. That's huge. Maybe, I don't know if you've noticed that, but getting around the edge has been huge for these running backs all season long.
And they have the capability of getting big plays, second in the country, 20-plus yard plays. We're talking so much about the passing, with big plays, but they get big plays in the run game as well. Jordan Travis, he's coming off 396, obviously a career best there last game, and had been kind of building those kind of performance. Obviously, that's a huge number, but he had over 300 earlier. His passing numbers are much better than they've been. Yeah. What do you see? Maybe what's the difference with Jordan this year in your mind?
Well, so Chris, going into this game, let's just say we start the season, right? And you look at this game on the schedule. In back of my mind, I'm like, okay, Tyler Van Dyke, he's going to be the best quarterback in this game, hands down. Respectfully, we understand what's going on with Tyler at the moment. However, this has been Jordan's best season in a Seminoles uniform. So the way that he's progressed, especially this year, in terms of him making just these huge jumps, has been impressive for me. His passing game, like you mentioned, 300 yards passing. He has a team 5-3 going in. So the way I respect that Jordan's been playing, that obviously his passing game has been doing his part. He's making good decisions, and he's been making plays with his legs too. So I have to give him a lot of credit, because a lot of people, don't forget, they kind of like threw him to the back seat for a bit, and then at the same time, look at the pressure he's dealt with, and at FSU and Tallahassee. So I respect that. He's been impressive this entire season, and going into this game, it's fair to say he may be the best quarterback playing in this game. So I have to give him complete credit that this is best season and for the Seminoles, and he's obviously going to be the best quarterback in this game.
I think one of the things that helps Jordan in this one is what he did last year. He got the win. He had a good game against his best game probably, and statistically passing wise last year. So he's got that confidence, and he plays with that. And his numbers over 2,000 yards, 14 touchdowns, the 3 picks, 62%. Any quarterback, you would take those passing numbers, and you combine that with what he can do on running the ball. Again, Miami's linebackers, you touch really the whole defense, because you talked about setting the edge on the ends. The defensive backs can't be giving up big plays. They're going to have to be, coming up and making tackles, I believe. I think guys like Tyreek Stevenson, I think the safeties with Kitchens, assuming James Williams, they've got to make plays. And I think overall,
all hands on deck, Chris.
Yeah, and Wes, what we talked about earlier about Miami and how their season's gone, they've got to play their best game. They have to play their best game. Guys are going to have to step up and play their best on both sides of the ball if they want to win this game. And I said a few weeks ago, with the way the season was going, that this was a big one in terms of you can't erase all the losses. But I thought, if you gain some positive momentum with just winning this rivalry game. And then the other thing I said, if they go to a bowl game, assuming they will win that, just something positive. I think that's what we're looking for. Something positive from a Miami standpoint down the stretch here. A couple updates, just if you haven't seen, Don Chaney Jr. might be able to play at the end of the regular season. Again, if you haven't seen that, I think that would be big. Just, I like when guys can get in there. He's missed 18 straight games, hasn't played since last September. So getting him on the field in some way would be good. I just think going, get something in there. I don't know how much of a difference it'll make. Tyler Van Dyke, I want to get your take on what we've been hearing from Coach, if he's really going to play. I'll just leave it at that. Do you think Tyler's going to play? What have you been making of the way Mario Cristobal, Will Mallory had interesting post-practice comments as well, but your thoughts on this whole situation here?
Okay. let's talk about Jake Garcia for a couple of seconds. So going from last year, I said, hey, Jake Garcia, he's fine. He can handle it. He's okay. And I expect a little bit more out of him. I'm not saying I expect him to be just that much better than Tyler Van Dyke, but just a little bit of concern with Jake Garcia. I was like, oh man, we've seen him in the past, and I'm like, wow, I've seen better Jake Garcia. So if he starts, it's a little worrisome in my opinion of against this FSU defense. But that's one thing. Tyler Van Dyke, I wish he needs to start. I like my chances better with Tyler Van Dyke. I've heard he's been in the sling. I've heard he's a game time decision. Maybe you agree with me on that one too. But at the end of the day, Chris, it's one of those things where I look at this and I'm like, okay, if he starts, will he even be ready? So I would prefer Tyler Van Dyke. Are we throwing him to the Wolves? Possibly. But overall, he started the season really bumpy. I saw him make vast improvements, but he's not the Tyler Van Dyke I expected this season, barring injury. So, quarterback, we're concerned.
Yeah, one of the things I think that's interesting, and just kind of knowing Tyler a little bit, covering him and stuff. Look, last year Miami lost to Florida State. That broke up their string. They end up winning 5 of 6 down the stretch. Tyler had those 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, but that was a loss. He didn't play well in that game. It was a rivalry game, and knowing Tyler, I feel like he's going to do what he can to get back on the field, kind of do what he can to make up for that one last year. Maybe try to, again, we talked about Miami positive, maybe for him too, personally reverse his season a little bit. And get out there. One of the things that's interesting, and it's hard to dissect with what Coach Cristobal is saying in terms of injuries, because we're not able to be out there. They have not allowed reporters to be out there since week 2 actually. But anyways, just listening to him talk, they're really putting it out there that, yeah, he's looking good, all these things. There was something that was interesting after Wednesday's practice where a reporter, Manny Navarro, asked about, in terms of how he's throwing, is it a pain tolerance? And Cristobal said, he looks good and looks normal to him. So I find that to be interesting, just that he provided that little extra thing about that. Now, he could certainly be not throwing at all or anything like that, but multiple people are coming out and saying he's looking good. And in terms of looking good and in terms of what it looks like throwing, to me, those are different things. So we will see.
What I was saying about being ready, Chris, I'm telling you, is he ready? Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll see. Again, it's a big game. You're expecting everything. I think Xavier Restrepo, people on our boards have asked about him. I think he's going to play a lot. I think this pitch count talk, I think that's a one-game thing, and then they let him go. So I expect Xavier. So that's something that we're not really talking about probably enough. Maybe he can make an impact. Jake Garcia, and I definitely want to flip it to some defense stuff. But yeah, let's talk more about Jake. I think too with Jake, it was his first start. He does make the play at the end and gets the win, gets the result. We always talk about results in football, regardless of how it gets done. But, you didn't have one of those comeback memorable moments against Middle Tennessee and Duke when he got in there for different reasons. They lost still both those games, and certainly they were down. They did take the lead against Duke, but I just think eventually you've got to start turning in performances that go to the positive, and whether it's individual or getting the results. You can't just keep, and I think from a team standpoint too, you can't just keep having moral victories and we got close, or I think that's what this season is. They were only a touchdown away from beating A&M. They come within 3 points against North Carolina, and that's fine, but eventually you're sitting here at 8 games into a season, almost done. You've got to get results. And I think that's the thing with Jake, at some point, I know he's still a young guy and doesn't have a lot of experience, but at some point he's got to turn the corner. If he's in there, he's got to play much better than he did last week. And we'll see. And I think a lot of people, Wes, I think myself included, expected more from Jake and expected him to do well. And eventually you got to turn the corner. He's got an opportunity here. This is year 2 for him. He has been in the program. It's college football. There's guys that make plays that are his age. So we'll see, but maybe some keys for Jake, if he is the guy, or Tyler. I don't expect the offense to look much different, but maybe keys for the quarterback position to maybe attacking Florida State, keys for this one for the passing game.
Okay, so let me start with Tyler. Let's just say hypothetically, okay, Tyler's our starter, right? from what I've seen, and there's games that people may laugh, but guys, I'm staring at Tyler on the field and on the sideline. Like literally, I'm looking at him and just body language also. And even where there was a point where they pulled him out the game, I was looking at his body language. How was he handling being pulled out the game before? And I'm like, okay, he's handling it well. But with that being said, so he's improved, interestingly, when he's running with the ball. So when I see him moving with the ball, passing, I've seen him improve. I've seen him have some rough spots in that area, but I've seen Tyler move, and I'm like, okay, he's making some plays here, moving with the ball, passing the ball. And I was like, okay, I was a little worried that he was just able to be in the pocket only, but him making that progress has been beneficial. So I was worried about him getting out the pocket, but if he can get out the pocket, get Mallory involved. Mallory's his go-to and stuff. Restrepo being out was a big hit for him, in my opinion, obviously, and them being roommates also too. But at the same time, we have the weapons, in my opinion. We have the weapons deep into the season. Tyler can get it done. So in my opinion, Tyler can just make those key decisions, go through his progressions. I've seen him stare down receivers and the defensive backs just jump in front of the passes, just 1, 2, 3, easy as that can be. So I respect Tyler's experience. I respect how he can go through his progressions, and I really like him as the starter over Jake, in my opinion. Okay, let's say Jake starts, okay? Better decision-making. I've seen some plays where Jake, at some times, I'm like, wow, that's just a bad throw, period. But at the same time, his offensive line can help him a little bit better too. You can see him doing those things in the progressions. I like Jake running the ball a little bit better than Tyler, but at the end of the day, Jake can just make just a little bit more better decisions. He hasn't been that bad in terms of me saying, oh my God, we should be worried if he starts. So at the end of the day, Jake can make a little bit more decisions. Maybe at the same time too, Chris, I feel that like if he can get his running game to help him a little bit more, that'd be perfect. And then at the same time, he can win the game also if Jake is there. But in my opinion, if it were Tyler, I would like him to pass a little bit more than run, but the Hurricanes can work on the back up the running game to help Tyler too. It won't be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, one guy to obviously pay attention to Florida State's defense is Jamie Robinson, safety, lights out performer. He's one of these guys that's capable of having a big time performance in a big game like this. Again, 7:30 Saturday night at Hard Rock. Florida State's defense, linebackers in particular, former head coach Randy Shannon coaches their linebackers. He'll be coming back to Hard Rock Stadium. That'll be interesting.
Oh, Randy.
He's got some linebackers that can play, putting up numbers. Kalen DeRoche, Tatum Bethune, DJ Lundy. You know, they've got other guys too, but their linebackers. We talked about Miami's linebackers, but maybe Florida State's linebacker group, coached by Coach Shannon there. Your thoughts on that group and maybe the keys for those guys in this defense for Florida State?
So overall, when we look at Florida State's schedule, right, Chris, there's been times where if we just look at a few games back, we say to ourselves, well, they were in this game. Why were they in this game? In my opinion, their defense, their linebackers, the whole secondary linebackers, they're the ones who really kept them in some big games throughout the season, especially where you look at how all of them, you just named them, they're just talented and able to back each other up the entire time. Now, with that being said, I go back to just the defensive lineman, Leonard Taylor. He's benefited from their defense being able to play that way. The linebackers, the secondary, and then he's been able to add that certain pressure, especially the last game, they've been able to come back. So, in my opinion, the linebackers and the secondary, they've been able to just keep Florida State in some big games that they could have won, and maybe they could have been coming into this game, maybe a 7-win team.
Yeah, you know, I was looking back at that last year's game. Again, 31-28, Florida State's favor. A lot of things, big plays there at the end. The 3 touchdowns scored by Florida State were all on the ground. The 4 by Miami were all through the air. Just kind of an interesting thing to watch for. Wes, you're always one of my favorite people to talk to about anything. We talk about a lot of stuff here. I want you to tell people about this. What you got going on here? Obviously, check out West and his comments. But tell me about the rum kick. What you got going?
Well, it's a Haitian rum cake. You know, I'm Haitian, and Chris, things like you always talk to me culturally. We're always just talking about culture, and you've embraced our Haitian culture a lot. You've had the Haitian bread, you've had the Haitian pate, but one thing that's special about that rum cake is it has the Haitian rum. There's a famous Haitian rum. It's called Babuku. There's a favorite Haitian rum. That's the rum that we use in our Haitian rum cake. It has rum, folks, so we want to emphasize it is a Haitian rum cake. And what's great about it is that Haitian rum cake, that's what's been fueling worldwidewest.com, has been helping us run the website, help us run my editors who help me when you guys read my columns on the Hurricanes, the Dolphins, help me pay the editors that edit my stand-up video post games when I'm covering the Hurricanes, the Dolphins, the Heat, everyone in South Florida. So it's a great rum cake. And on that box, that's a special statue that goes back to Haiti. It's a special statue that's located in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And it's that Lamy. It's a famous statue, and it's called about, that statue was erected when the Haitis were able to abolish freedom in Haiti for the first time. So in 1804. So there's a lot to be said in history about the rum cake, about the box itself. But at the same time, that's my culture. That's who I am. But Chris, me and you, the day we met, we're like sports. And, your background, my background connected us. But the sports, and growing up in Miami, and, I've always been FSU game fan. And this is a game like growing up, like literally in my boxers watching growing up, but, it's sad it's not the state that it was when I was growing up. As big as it is, it's still big. But, I'm just excited to cover the games now, which is mind-boggling too. So I love it. Growing up in Miami, Haitian rum cake. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, all good. All good stuff that you're providing here, Wes. A lot of good knowledge. Hey, before I get out of here, I always like bringing this story up. It's something I've not talked about on the channel before, but you were actually you were aware of this. So the most popular video on the YouTube channel on the InsideTheU was this Tate Martell video. Goes viral, over 250,000 views. But I always remember, Wes, because so they're playing, just a little background and then chime you in on this, but so they're playing Bethune-Cookman. I'm almost always in the press box, but for that game, because things have been going well in terms of video stuff and with Tate, there was a lot of interest. I was on the field. So they're playing Bethune. You're expecting them to get in and do something. Earlier, I had this big video where he at Florida when they kind of went through some warm-ups playing receiver. So there was obviously a lot of attention. So I go down there. He doesn't do very much at all during the game. I come back to the press box and I'm talking to you and I'm like, man, I don't know if I should even do this video because he didn't do a lot and all this thing. And then I was like, well, I'm just going to put it up there. And I told you, I was like, maybe at that point, I was like, maybe it could get like 10,000 views. That would be great. And just kind of move on. I put it up there. And yeah, it's the most popular video ever on the channel. Yeah. But I remember talking to you about it. And I remember telling you like, hey, remember that thing? Like a week later, kind of going off there.
And since then, I've been on the Tate Martell viral bandwagon, by the way, Chris. Because like going back, I'm like, man, this guy goes viral. Like literally, like there's this Tate Martell following, man. Like it's serious. Like, and I'm like, wow, like people really like follow him in terms of like just the legend of Tate Martell per se. And it's interesting because with respect of it going viral, you wish any athlete the best, you know what I mean? And obviously, I don't like to use the word hype per se, but there's a lot of talent that you see, potential talent that you saw in Tate Martell, and people were very intrigued by it all the time. And obviously, you provided one of the best things also, man. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's sports. So we get excited about certain players as media members, as fans. Everyone gets excited. We will see if there's excitement Saturday night if Miami can pull this thing off. What Florida State does, it's a big kind of a pivotal point, kind of going down this final month. Certainly, Florida State's going into this one trying to get really past that 3-game losing streak they had early on. So, Wes, appreciate you taking the time, and we'll see you Saturday.
Yes, sir. I'll be in the building, Chris.